All right, 1-1 numerical expressions part 2. So we did part 1 for Tuesday, and now we are working on part 2. The I can statement is the same, so we are going to be able to write and evaluate numerical expressions. So first thing we're looking at, and we kind of talked about it in the last video, is exponents. And exponents are written in x to the nth power, and that's the way we say it as well. So n represents how many times x is multiplied by itself. So we see the example of 5 to the 3rd power. If we remember, if we go back to our memory of what we've learned in our past, that means we're taking 5 and we're multiplying it by itself 3 times. So 5 times 5 is 25, and then I can just take that times 5, which equals 125. So here's one with a variable. Now this is treated in the exact same way. So I'm just going to take x to the 4th and expand it, so that is x multiplied by itself 4 times. So order of operations, this is what everything in math revolves around, and it's very important that we remember it. And I've heard so many of you talk about it last week in class and when you were looking at the map test and some of the other stuff we did. So this should be just a review. If it's not, that's okay. We're going to learn it now. So everybody remembers PEMDAS. So P is grouping symbols, or when I think of P, I think of parentheses, but I remember that, apply that to all grouping symbols. So for instance, that means, that means brackets. That means what's on top or on bottom of a division symbol or a fraction. There's multiple ways that we can write grouping symbols. So just remember, it's not just parentheses. Then we have exponents, which we just talked about, so not much explanation needs to go in there, but remember that looks like 2 to the 3rd. And then the M and the D go together, and that means multiply and divide from left to right. So this is the way we read. And then the A and the S go together as well, and that's add and subtract from left to right. So we just need to make sure to follow those steps. So we're going to start by evaluating exponents first. So here we have 2 to the 4th. So I'm going to write this out. I'm going to put it in what we call expanded form. So I just take 2 and I multiply it by itself 4 times. So I'll take 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, then I multiply those together. 4 times 4 is 16, and that's your answer. So if I have 3 squared or 3 to the 2nd power, which that's a great example, when you have something to the 2nd power, often people call it squared. So those terms are interchangeable. So 3 squared or 3 to the 2nd power means 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we're going to evaluate something. This is an expression, and we're going to use order of operations. So we're just going to go through our steps. So the first step of order of operations is grouping symbols or parentheses. So I'm going to do what's inside these grouping symbols, and I'm just going to change colors as I do the steps. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Now I have to bring everything else down just as it was. So then I say, well, do I have any more parentheses? Nope, no more parentheses. So my next step is E, so PEMDAS, which is exponent. So I'm going to do this exponent because I do have an exponent. Change colors again for you guys. So I take 1 squared. Well, 1 squared is 1 times 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. Then I just go ahead and bring everything else down as it is. Then I look and say, well, do I have any multiplication or division? Because remember, those two steps go together, and I don't. So that means I'm good there. And then I say, well, the last step is addition and subtraction. And we have to remember that's left to right. So we're actually going to do the subtraction first. So we're going to do 15 minus 10, which is 5. Bring everything else down. And then my last step, I'm just going to add these up from left to right all together. So I have 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. Okay, let's take a look at this one. So what I would do right now if I were you, I would pause this video and try to work it out yourself and then come back and watch as I work it out. So the first step of order of operations is parentheses or grouping symbols. And remember, grouping symbols are on the top and the bottom of the fraction. So technically I have 2 sets of grouping symbols. If I look at the top first, it's 2 to the third minus 5. So I don't really have anything I can do in that position right now. At the bottom, I have 15 plus 9, which I can do, and that's 24. So within this top grouping symbol, I have an exponent, so that would be my next step. So I'm going to take 2 to the third, which remember, 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 8 minus 5 on top, all over 24. I just bring everything else with me. Now I take care of what's on top of that parenthesis because I have to finish out that grouping symbol. So 8 minus 5 is 3. So that leaves me with 3 over 24. And then my last step is just going to be reduce this multiplication and division. So 3 over 24, I say, well, what can I divide both of those by? And when I see a number like 3 that's very small, that's where I should start. So I'm going to say I'm going to divide top and bottom by 3. Well, 3 divided by 1 is, or 3 is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So my final answer is 1/8. Okay, assignments for tomorrow. Make sure we are doing the notes. The notes are going to be labeled 1-1 part 2. Have them out at the beginning of class while you're working on ALEKS so we can check them. And then the WSQ, remember you can submit it electronically before class, and you're either using the Google form or the Flipgrid.